evening, wherever you are. We're all over the place. Excited to welcome you all to this webinar. Lots of Ds, talking about the difficulties, the delays, the deadlines. They bring a lot of angst and anxiety and dealing with due dates and dependencies, all those things. So it's a big topic with the MSPs I talk to around the world, really. And because a lot of us don't have this figured out. We start our IT business and we don't know these things. We pick up bits and pieces, but we struggle with it. Or we know the theory, and it's really hard to practice in this constantly changing IT world. And so I brought in two experts, two friends, two of our advisors on this. So Bjorn, who works with dozens of MSPs, consulting them on their ConnectWise, their best practices, Halo as well, and Melvin, who's a enterprise agile coach and trainer. So welcome to Bjorn and Melvin.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
So yeah, just looking forward to a conversation, bit of a podcast or a coffee style chat about deadlines, agile, sprints, Scrum, those things. And yeah, just a live discussion around this. How do we make more money, ultimately more predictable, less stress? So Bjorn will help us guide this conversation. So
yeah,
over to you.
Well, I mean, this is I feel like a lifelong pursuit, right? How to better manage projects, or really just task management in general, right? For me, I've had different attempts at it over the years, and had a recent experience I'm looking forward to today, because I tend to be more of a traditional mindset. This is how I was trained, and I think that's the problem we wanted to start with, and that's the problem with traditional deadlines, and specifically we're talking about projects for MSPs, right? So I think that's one of the most important things to really highlight here. Is it's hard to say what is an average MSP, right? But let's just say that the most typical project is not one that spans years. It's a project that sometimes spans months, and a lot of times it can be done within 1 month, right? Some of these projects. So, and the fact that MSPs definitely have multiple projects that are in progress, and we can talk about what that means in a minute. And that's where you start having some of the complexities, where you have things running in parallel, and there are dependencies across those projects that are potentially going live. But so why don't we start with, I would say, sort of, I'll play I'm the old school guy who does the waterfall method, is what I call it, right? So, there's the idea is you get everything a budget, you give everything an estimate, I should say, which I call a budget. Each task has a budget. Ideally, you have some dependency. I'm not huge on going crazy with that, but really understanding what definitely has to happen before this other thing can happen. I have to get this one thing done, right? And then it's the providing communication and visibility to the project stakeholders, the people, clients, executives within your organization. If things start going sideways, having visibility into the team, right? And what's going on with the project. So I guess from a, what are the problems with that, Melvin? I'll start with you. What do you think the biggest challenge is trying to run a project with sort of that, let's say my mindset? Like, if I'm a waterfall guy, what would you tell me, right away, why that? Or you would say, so have you had this problem trying to run your projects that way?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be super honest. It's not about waterfall, it's not about agile, it's about how you control flow, right?
Okay.
Why? Because we all tend to content switch. We all tend to do too many things at the same time. Let's say you plan a project, sequence of steps, simple one, but then you add another project, and then you add another project, and then you are content switching between projects. So what is going to take a month, as you said, probably, and you should be able to finish it, now it's not, because you're working on maybe 2 or 3 other projects. You're trying to serve all the customers at the same time, rather than prioritizing and controlling flow and saying, okay, you know what, let's go for it. So imagine a highway or a motorway where you start adding cars into it. At some point, everything stops because there is so much traffic that you cannot predict how long it will take to get, right? So if you don't control flow, that's it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I mean, this is completely outside the waterfall. This is just, flow control, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
If you ask me, right? So I would say the same, right? So I don't care if you do waterfall or agile. Let's visualize flow, control it, make sure you are removing anything that is stopping your teams and go with it. And then you should be able to hit it, right?
So you said context switching, right? I think we're all in a world where we have tons of inputs and we have tons of things going on at the same time. And I think as I was preparing for this, and I feel like I'm a little bit of a broken record here, but I think it's keep it simple, right? And keep it focused on what's important are sort of the two simple themes that I don't know, simple is not, it's simple, but it's not easy. Let's put it that way, to stay focused and to keep things simple. What we tend to do, I think overall as human beings, is I feel like if I got to be busy all the time, but I'm not necessarily busy with the right things or the most important things at the time. And then who defines what is important over not? So definitely agree with you that context switching is causes inefficiency. The other one that I traditionally or have seen and personally and also through other people is the firefighting mode. When there's somebody that screams, that becomes the priority, or there's now a last minute thing has to be done, so it totally wrecks all the planning and I have to reschedule. So I think for me, and Wim, maybe this is something where you can answer this, is instead of scheduling, over planning and over scheduling and spending a bunch of time scheduling, what is it, Wim, that you would say is an alternative to that? Instead, if I'm not going to schedule every task that has to get done, what am I doing instead?
Prioritizing it. So visualizing your work, number one, and then prioritizing it, number two, and then reduce the amount of things you've started and haven't finished. So focus on getting stuff done. So that's like Melvin says, the flow on the highway, right?
Yeah.
You don't schedule the cars to go from between 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock, you're going to go drive. It's like, no, you just manage the flow and the spacing between the cars so it keeps moving. Manage your bottlenecks.
But you need to visualize it in a proper tool, because if you use the traditional project management or waterfall tools that are only for project managers, then you're not controlling flow. You need to visualize it with a Kanban board. You have top left, and then you can start controlling flow. Not only you, but everybody working on that project or that amount of projects, right? Because if not, you cannot control flow. You cannot control what you cannot visualize. A static project plan doesn't help you to control flow. You cannot see what is happening, right?
And I think that's another piece of the mindset that comes with top left. Is not just a tool, but it's also the mindset and work methodology, right? And one of the key things there is that you're constantly recalibrating, I think, in this mindset. You're constantly looking at what got done yesterday and what do I need to focus on today. So it's not this, I set this plan for multiple weeks, multiple months, and the expectation is that, no, I can do that, but then I also know that I'm going to sit there and look at that and recalibrate based on what I've gotten done that day, for example, so that the next day. So that comes in the form of those daily stand-ups that you're having. So another way to say waterfall is critical chain project management. It's a lot, CCPM, it's a lot there. It's critical path. And I think that is traditionally comes out of manufacturing, sort of the big industries, large resource constraints and all kinds of stuff that has to be planned. I get it. So that goes into a lot of complexity, and I think when we try to get that complex with MSP projects, then we lose the potential to get at the tasks that need to be worked on and kind of, we have the ability to be flexible versus a plant where everything's fixed and there's stations and what have you. There's less flexibility in that. So it kind of makes sense in that environment potentially. What is, Wim, if you can bring up, while I'm talking here, if you can bring up sort of the most general view of a Kanban board where you're seeing the flow. So I think I want to ask you, Wim, too, is if you define what is flow, what is throughput to you? Melvin's mentioned flow multiple times. So in this visual, what is flow?
To me, flow is that left to right flow work. The work comes in at the top left. Actually, probably come at the bottom of the left column, right? Comes in at the
bottom down, yeah.
Flows to the top. You're going to grab the topmost card, the top left, and then pull it across to ready. Pull it all the way through this pipeline. So that's the analogy I always like to give. It's a pipeline. It's like water. You want it flowing downhill. Use gravity, and you don't want it going back uphill. So left to right flow, and that it's just, let's say with a card here is we would grab. The idea is it would flow like this. It would move up the column.
Yeah.
There is a trick there, right? So you need to pull, not to push. And the difference there is you only pull when you finish working on what you're doing or you get blocked. And then you pull another task. Normally we push. We push people with, oh, you need to do this and you need to do that. And you have someone dispatching a lot of stuff. And it's like, well, I already have a lot. Oh, you need to keep going, right? And now you're putting in my brain that I need to work on all of these things at the same time. That's it. Flow is gone because you're not controlling it, right?
So, okay, let's hone in on this, right? Because let's say we're working on this project together, the three of us, right?
Yep.
And we decide, okay, we've had our daily stand up and I know what I'm supposed to be doing. Melvin knows what he's supposed to be doing and Wim knows what he's supposed to be doing. Let's say I'm working on a task that's sitting in progress. Let's say that one, or the research the phone, I guess it says, right?
Yep.
So let's say I get stuck on that. When you said stuck, I need to go pull. Now I need to go pull. First of all, what do I do with that ticket or that task on that card? What do I do with that one so that I can go and move it, go and grab something else? So first, what do I do on that particular card?
First we need to address, have you got stuck? I mean, can someone help you from the team? Can I help you as a project manager? You know what, Melvin? Let's say I'm a project manager. I don't know. I need to raise or to do something, or I need some answers.
Yep.
Okay, let me go get those answers, put it on waiting or put it on hold because now you're not working on that, so that we all know that that's on hold or waiting for something. And now you have two options. You can help someone on your team, or you can go and pull something from ready. Whatever is at the top of the ready column, that's the next task available, right? Don't pull 3, 4, 5. Get one thing, work on it until you finish or get blocked.
Yeah, and this view, right? I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Melvin.
No. I mean, that's key, right? So I know some tasks are like 20 days piece of work. Well, break it down into smaller chunks, no bigger than a day or two, where then you can get more people working on big things and you can finish faster, right? And that's controlling flow. 20 days, one person may take 40 days. 20 days, a team may go faster, right? Because even the effort is 20 days, the lead time to deliver that maybe goes down to 10 days. So that's far more efficient. Then you have less customers shouting at you, I want my stuff. People shout because you don't get stuff delivered on time. Once you control flow, that's it, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, and I like the fact that you're basically, so this says help desk on the screen right now, but let's pretend this is a project, right? And so if the three of us, we're all resources on this project. And so then I move that task over to waiting, and then that indicates to a project manager, hey, there's something going on here. It's dependent on something. That's again, blocking and tackling and visual management. The idea is that I am definitely managing in real time. I'm not, as a project manager, I'm a pretty active project manager is what we're saying here, right? I am not sitting back and just kind of waiting for the next status meeting. I am actively working, engaged.
You're not going to wait until, let's say, next Friday when we have this status meeting and you tell me, I can see it gets blocked. If I don't see it today, tomorrow morning, the daily stand-up, daily
stand-up.
That's blocked. Okay, let me help you out. But I don't lose a week. I act straight away, right?
Right. So I think that, you switched the view here, Wim. Thank you. Yeah. So it's and this is kind of the same thing we were just talking about, right? You have a project tickets that are sitting in there's a backlog, waiting, dependency, ready, scheduled, waiting. So the idea is things are flowing over towards completed. And then you have the visual indicators of what's going on, not only around each card, but then also, something that's completely red there. I mean, obviously that's, get the red out, as ConnectWise used to say all the time.
In this view, if it is, let's say, 2 or 3 people, for my 11 tasks in progress, no way, right?
Yeah.
So it should be 3, 4 max, and that's it. Honestly, ideally, it should be 2 tasks, right? Because we are helping each other, or even 1 if we can. I know that not all the time we can work together. I understand all that, but not 11, right? If it is 3 people.
Yeah, so I want to come back to that, right? Because I think the number of tasks and what level of detail you put, how many tasks do I create per project? It's one of the most common questions that I get of my clients. And for one of these cards that's on this board for a project, what is the amount of time that is typically attributed to each card, right?
Depends on the project, right? So, I mean,
Sure.
some projects probably an hour should be the smallest one.
Yeah.
Some projects probably, you know what, this is not a big thing. It's a couple of days, and you know what, we have maybe 15 minutes. That's something that you need to agree as a team, right? So, what will be the smallest task?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this goes to and this goes to ConnectWise and Halo and any other PSA Autotask. It doesn't matter. The idea that you have internally, you had defined what your most common projects are, that you have project templates, and that those project templates are based on actual results that you've gone back to, and you have tuned those project templates based on actual results. So all of this is assuming that not only have you set up templates, project templates, or project plans that are based on project templates, and those templates include the estimated time for those tasks that are within the project tickets, right? And then you do a retrospective on the project at the end to make sure hey, here we were over budget here. Why were we over budget? Do we need to adjust the template? That kind of thing. I think that
if you're in a waterfall mode, you will do like a project review. If you are trying to start now, okay, we are still waterfall, but we are trying to get better. Let's not wait 2 or 3 months to finish the project. Let's I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks, what's working, what's not, so that we can improve our ways of working, right? And that's it. But that's for the team. It's not for the project. It's like, you know what, maybe the board is not working, or maybe whatever, right? So the information on the ticket, let's fix it so we can improve and go faster. You can see we are not talking about Agile waterfall. We are just trying to talk about how do we
get stuff done. Yeah, that's my word for flow. Get stuff done, right? As effectively and efficiently as possible. No, we're saying the same thing. And I think the idea is that if I'm approaching the estimated budget on a task, right, then in the daily stand-up, I or the project manager brings that up, right? It's like, hey, you've already spent, 90% of this budget, but are you going to be complete, or are you on whatever the case is. So I think that's a very key difference. Is this, what's that?
The important there, sorry that I stopped there. The important thing there is not to blame people, but it's like, okay, you already spent 90% of your budget in this task. How can I help you? Or how can we help you?
Right.
How we miss, maybe, you know what, we underestimated this. This is bigger. Okay. Can we recover? I don't know, but that's the important thing there. How can we help you? How can we, get this back on track? It's not a blaming like, no, listen, something happened. We said that was, I don't know, 2 hours. It's going to take. And that's why you are constantly acting as a project manager, as a facilitator, let's say, helping people.
Right. So going back to the, earlier we were on the different screen, but let's say I put something in waiting and I want to go pull. When, how do I know, as I'm the, one of the engineers on the project, how do I know what to pull? Where do I go next? Just want to make this very clear. Do I just go to ready and pull the top ticket if I'm on this team?
We want this flow, right? Of left to right. So you always got to do your rightmost. You actually work from the right to the left. So that engineer should be like, okay, my in progress, how do I get those done and over to completed? Then if there's nothing I can do in progress, then I'm pulling from waiting. Is there anything there I can help move forward? Then where you're scheduled, this is kind of an anomaly, I guess, in your flow, because you can't go and grab from, you got to wait for that scheduled time. But yes, you'd be grabbing from the top of ready. So ideally, if you're doing, the team is owning the work and they've got enough of the skills, anybody in that team could grab that next ticket. Like these tickets in the ready column don't need to be assigned to a person.
Exactly.
But it's a bit more advanced, right? A lot of teams, when they're
Yep.
starting out, they're not ready for that because
Yeah.
they don't have enough skills to just grab the next ticket.
Cool. But then how can I help? Who can help me out? And I
Yes.
know that there is a bit of a concern of, oh, now we are going to lose time because someone needs to help me. But then you skill up the team, everybody has a chance on working on things, and then you're learning and you're going faster. So in a couple, because at the end of the day, they have the skills, but you're allowing them, you're empowering them, and then you start flowing. I know, as I agree with Wim, it's a bit more advanced thinking, but also because what happened now is that, oh, there are no tasks for me ready. There is nothing for me to do in this project. Now I sit idle here doing nothing.
Right.
I have that before. I mean, I work as project manager and I work with many teams and, oh, I'm assigned to this project. There is nothing for me to do. So I stay here waiting until the project managers tell me what to do. But are you doing something? No. What are you doing? I mean, we are on fire and you are doing nothing because you're assigned to a project and anything else doesn't work like that, right?
Yeah, so then so I'm gonna go pull, assuming I can, there's 17 tickets that are ready, right? So I'm assuming that I can find one of those tickets to work on, right? So I just drag it over and put it in progress, and I start rocking and rolling on that. And then if I want to actually interact with that ticket, I open it up and I start cranking in my time, which the time, for me, from a actual being a worker on a project, this interface compared to some of the interfaces that you see in PSAs from a redacted view of time entry, it's a very clean, very straightforward, much more user friendly in my opinion, as far as what from a UI and UX perspective. So fantastic. I just start working it the way I normally would at that point. And there's the pause button, resume. Is there anything else we want to highlight on this screen?
Not really. Just the idea is working out of your single piece flow, right? Come in, do your time, do your notes, check yourself off as done, close it, or move it to the next stage and on to the next ticket. All right.
Right.
So one thing is, and I know it's missing in this one, but some teams, because they are starting to cross-skill, they may have, before completed, they may have like a review column. And that review column is like, I did something, but it was the first time. I need someone on the team to review it for me so that we don't push anything into production that is wrong. And then, okay, now as a probably senior team member, I know that I need to keep an eye on the review column, right? Okay, so before I even pull from ready, let me check the reviews, approve. Or sometimes some teams are like, okay, even if I'm senior, I want someone to, another pair of eyes. So I put it there on review, someone help me from the team, hey, that's okay, or no, you missed this, whatever, right? And that we are improving our quality, right? Because
just agreed. I mean, I think it is nice to have a review step. So going back mechanically, tactically, if I'm in that cart when I was entering my time in that interface, can I update something in there that tells it where to go, or do I need to go? Is there a status in here in this screen that will put it in the next column that I want it to go to?
Yeah, you can pick it from the list here. It doesn't really know what the next column is.
Okay.
We can certainly pick it from the list here.
Got it. Yeah. So if I wanted to put in a review, if I need to put in review, I can put,
you probably need to add a column for review, right? So
it's really
easy. Yeah. No, absolutely. And you can easily add a column for that review, which is fantastic. The UI is configuration UI is straightforward. Yep. Okay. And then so then I go back to the screen, and let's just keep talking about sort of the advantages of work visibility. Here is where kind of I'm focusing in on, right? Is let's say I've in progress is done, or everything that's in progress, I'm done with my in progress. I can't do any scheduling. I can't help with waiting. I picked up all the readies are done. If all the readies are done, which I don't think that'll be a situation, but who is taking care of the backlog and the waiting dependencies? Is that part of the daily stand-up? And I'm gonna ask this to Wim. Who's working the waiting dependency and making sure that is moving forward into the ready column?
I would say that in the project team, that would be your project manager. The Scrum language, you say that's your product owner. Or your
Yeah.
Scrum Master
Or
doing that, right?
these days they call it a delivery manager, who is a mix of a product owner, a Scrum Master, and a team manager, right? But it's someone who is dealing with the noise and the priorities and sorting out dependencies with other project managers, and now telling the team, because that's what you're doing. You're facilitating and making sure the team doesn't need to deal with all that noise. I sort it out for you, right?
Right. So as a project engineer on that project, I can really focus on which is where, you know, when have my engineer hat on, all I want to focus on, tell me what to do next, I'll do it, right? Right. Or I should say, let me go, don't tell me, oh, even better, I can go pull the next task and I can just, you know, work at my own pace, right? That's the difference.
Yeah.
The backlog, what I like about this view too is I also have a sense as a team member, a project team member, I see that there's 62 tickets back there, right? I know, we as a team know this is a 62 task or card, you know, heavy project that we need to get to. So it kind of gives us all a sense of where we're going. I guess the next thing I want to say is, let's say I'm working on, let's shift a little bit to, and if there are any questions from the audience, please post them in chat. I don't know, do they have the ability to do that?
Yep.
Okay.
They should, yeah.
All right, well, message us if you don't. If you have any specific questions about project management or top left in general. So we're going to get into a little bit of mention a case study here, because Steve, I always mess it, Sarah Dellis, that Wim talks about. He's very involved, loves top left, loves Kanban, Agile, and you know, the improvement in project efficiency. And one of the things that I picked up from Steve, and he has a big case study. He has I think an hour-long video that he goes into this, that Wim, that you interviewed him, I think. And the biggest nugget that I got from Steve, or one of the biggest nuggets, I shouldn't say is what we've already talked about, which is the WIP limits. You know, reducing the amount of WIP across, not just within a project. Now I'm talking about your entire project team, right? So or multiple projects at one time. When do I have the capacity to bring in a new project? And that's what this screen is all about, right? You have to have some way to visualize all of your projects, right? And when I say visualize, I mean, this is one visual. I'm not saying this is the only visual. There are other ways to visualize this. Project portfolios is a common thing in other tools. But the idea is I need to get an idea of what I can handle, what my team can handle. And so that I can communicate to sales to say, hey, this project that you're about to get signature on, we can roughly start it at, you know, at this point, right? So I guess talk to me about the keeping WIP manageable. How do I leverage, Melvin, how do I leverage this screen right here to help me keep WIP manageable? What do I have to know? I have to know the capacity of my team, right? But then what is it? How do I know that? How can I,
I mean, it
relatively
will take a
quickly know the
little.
capacity?
I mean, ideally, capacity is a tricky one, right? Because you will try to load as much as you can. The important thing here will be the throughput, right? So how many projects you can deliver, depending on the size of the project, per month or per quarter, and that's an average. But that will tell you this is how much we can deliver, right? So changes, right? Depending on how big your team is, depending on how big your projects are. But once you get that throughput, which is an average, I don't know, maybe 5 projects or per quarter or per month or whatever, then you're able to control it. But if you cannot control that, you are in trouble, because if you add 100 projects thinking that we can do 100 projects, which is normal, oh, we can do all of them. Oh, well, now your team are content switching on all of them. And then the problem you have is that at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter, you have worked a lot, but nothing has been delivered. And you're not prioritizing projects in terms of what's the most valuable or risky, whatever. You're just working on everything.
Right.
And then, you know, some customers probably don't need it, and the ones who need it don't. So nobody gets anything out, right?
Right. That's right. And I think you know, I've heard this a number of times and experienced it directly too, is you want to make your client happy by starting their project,
And
right?
finishing them.
But the real magic is actually finishing the project, because if you just start the project and then you jump to another project and leave this other client hanging, right? Oh, I haven't heard anything for a couple of days. Yeah, that's kind of like
We
yeah,
we try to please people, right? That's normal, right? So
yeah,
you try to do the best you can and try to
right,
make everybody happy. But at the end of the day, it doesn't work. And if you're going to prioritize this based on whoever shouts louder or who, it doesn't go anywhere, right? We need
right,
to be reasonable, right? So, and then that's the point, right? So throughput is an average, maybe instead of running per quarter because, oh, it takes too long, try to see how much you can do per month. And then you
mhm,
start taking a shower, a bit more of hot. You will need to manage it, right? So and then you will
right,
be able to flow. Think on a. I always say the same. If you think on a motorway or a highway, right? It's better you go 50 miles an hour than you get block, stop because there is an overload of projects, and then you cannot predict at what time you're going to finish your project.
that's
But if
right.
you're running 50 miles an hour, now you say, well, 50 miles an hour, I need to go 100 miles, then it will take me 2 hours. Okay, I will get there. It's
Yeah,
not the ideal speed. Probably I want to go 100. Yeah, but you know what? I can only go
right.
50. But at least I know. Makes
Yeah,
sense?
and yeah, it totally makes sense. And I think it's also you know, I see, you know, the more operationally mature organizations, they are continuously looking at not just their, you know, forward, you know, hey, what can I do? I'm also looking backwards and saying, let's do some analysis on what we have actually been able to complete and how we can potentially tweak what we've completed, meaning, do I need to hire somebody else? Do I need to train somebody? Because it, you know, whatever the case is, I'm looking for actionable insights. And I'm also looking for throughput numbers. How much did I actually complete? And so then I can inform my future plan, right? And all of this, you know, when you start talking about project efficiency boost, right? And there's also project profitability, which we haven't really talked about, but just purely from a project efficiency and effectiveness, you know, Steve's saying he got what 58.4%. That's a very specific number, but you know, he's done some math and figured out that, you know, before and after, you know, there's a massive benefit from minimizing the number of projects that you start, or optimizing, I should say, optimizing the projects that you start, and then getting those done so you can slot in the next ones that comes through. So backlog quoted, waiting on hold, ready to start, and started, right? So this is your overview, your portfolio management, you know what's going on, and you have some data that in each of these sections, right, to tell you what is started and some indicators to what's going on. So the next thing I want to talk about is when you have resources that work both projects and tickets, right? Service tickets. I mean, there's a lot of MSPs have to share resources across teams, right? Project, let's just keep it simple, help desk and projects. When you get of a larger size, you have a dedicated project team and PMO, and you have a dedicated help desk, right? So, but just for a second, let's pretend we're in that size organization where we have to jump from service tickets to projects. Wim, what's
I was just
your
going to say is we got some larger clients with like hundreds of employees,
mhm,
and they actually do a mix as well because they have a
okay,
pod structure. And so in that pod, they do the projects and they support the project afterwards in operations. So
okay,
they end up
Well,
getting it that same way, right? So it's not
yeah,
a
yeah,
hard and fast rule like that.
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I work with big customers and they have that. What
Yeah,
do
so
we do? How do we
yeah,
plan? My experience, and this is just experience, is it's going to be a 50% project work, 50% BAU. It's just a place to start because how do you know how much can you plan, right? So you can do throughput as well, but if you need to plan some project, well, 50%, we will try to deal with that because we are trying to, it could be that sometimes you have more BAU, you have less, but it's kind of a place to start, right? If you're doing planning, let's say quarterly planning, as many companies do today, okay, this is how much. We won't be able to plan 100% for project because we need to do BAU. And I have seen it where people don't consider that. They plan the whole throughput or the whole capacity for project work. They ignore BAU and then they're working 24 hours a day trying to do it. And then people get burned and all the bad things.
Yeah.
Okay.
So with top left, there's
Yeah.
a few ways of doing that, right? So on a ticket board, you can show a mix of service and project tickets.
Okay.
And then it comes down to prioritization and people following it. So if you're the manager, the coordinator is prioritizing it, then the engineer shouldn't have to worry about, am I getting enough service time in or enough project time? Just work the order and it should all work out. Prioritize that way, right?
Yeah, and now we're back to, in this model, you're still pulling, right? So I'm pulling from the same way we were talking about before, right? And if I go to the ready column and again, this is a question of assuming that everyone that's in this board or in this team has this view, has this relatively the same skill set. So I should be able to pick up these tickets, the next card, and start working them. And then if, like Melvin said earlier, if I need help, I can actually get it. So let's talk about the color coding here a little bit, right? What is it about the border color versus the internal colors that are in these cards? Let's start with purple in the top left. What is that?
The purple, these are just the colors coming out of ConnectWise. And on this example, Autotask would have its own colors. So
Sure.
priority 4 is this purple color that's on the left of the card, and 1 would be the red. Priority 1 is emergency.
Got it. So yeah, so I mean, those are configurable, how you use the colors, but again, there's color coding there for priority. And then what that orange there, what in scheduled, what's
I've got
that
some
all about?
visual rules set up in this demo environment. It says if it's coming from a specific project, it's called like a Linux board in this one. So if it's a Linux project, then show this orange color. But you could have any rule there. It could be sales engineering or quotes or whatever. Set a border or a background color for that criteria. The work type, all those different fields you have tracking your PSA, and there's like dozens of them. And you can set rules to visualize on that. Yeah. But this way, I did it on this board to clearly see that these project tickets starting with a P are project tickets. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, this is a mix. You're showing a mix of help desk and project. I mean, essentially, a task is a task, right? It does. You don't really need to know if I'm an engineer and I'm working. I'm just taking the next task.
Yeah.
Independently of project or BAU, right? So whatever is the next priority, we go for it. Some teams I work have a column instead of ready will be small tickets, and then the project manager or the team manager will be like adding all the things that they believe small is, I don't know, smaller than 15 minutes or whatever, and then they have 1 day a week, let's say in the morning, as a team they go and then, because they are not P1s or P2 and they have like a bit of time, and then they are like closing all those in one go, for example, to reduce the noise on the queue, so you don't have a massive queue. But that depends. Some teams do it every day. That's something you need to figure out, right? But there are things that are big, and we know that they will take probably a week or two or whatever they're going to take, and people will not go like mental. But there are small things that, you know what, they cannot be sitting on the queue for a week, right? So, and then let's clean it. As an example, right? But that's how you use the board. You use it to control these things, and you are not just seeing tickets on the board. Now you are seeing beyond the board, and you are controlling flow. You are controlling the work, priorities, making sure everybody is available. People are not idle. And if I'm not there, people know what to do, because let's say I'm a project manager and I'm meeting on the customer. I don't need to be spoon feeding people. They know what to do. They just keep pulling, right?
So we focused on sort of the project engineer, the project managers a little bit, and then there's also this looming things. If I've committed to a deadline, I mean, the traditional, hard deadline, as hard as it can get, is somebody's moving, right? Let's just use that as an example. I'm moving offices and we're helping, a company move from one place to another, and they have dates, right? Everything from connectivity, from the whatever the internet provider is, and those typically have dates. when I actually have to be out of the old office and I can get into the new office, so kind of optimize that over a weekend or whatever it is. So there is this concept of some things have to be scheduled, right? And when I'm in that, it's one of the common things I say, well, I don't, how do I blend the ability to schedule something and make sure that these 62 tasks that we saw on that one project, do all of these have to be done before that move, or a subset of them have to be done before that move? So getting a little bit into scheduling and dependencies. So, Wim, how do you recommend somebody addressing sort of a hard move date type of project in that project that we were looking at before with 62 tickets?
Yeah, I've got a move project here in our demo environment, but it's got like 5. So we're not quite at that bar, but I see what you're getting at. But
Yeah.
you can definitely set some timelines in whatever your PSA, and we have Gantt charts, so you can see that bigger picture. But then from I guess a backlog grooming perspective, is you want those tickets prioritized with some visuals on there, like put some due dates in there. I would just caution is like, just because you have 60 tickets doesn't mean they all need to be scheduled, because things get bumped anyways. I think it'd just be a waste to like do every single ticket. But there's some key ones that are going to have to get some dates and some visuals on there so that they can get completed on time. Yeah.
Okay. Then as far as reporting to people that are interested, i.e. the client, hey, are we going to be able to move? Are we on time? Or are we tracking, right? How do I best communicate to my clients, Melvin, in sort of the general sense? What do you see as sort of, is it a weekly cadence? I know it depends. Let's assume it's this office move project, right? So if I want to give my client an update on how we're doing, what have you seen that's most effective?
Depending, I guess, on how close you get to the date on your moving, right? So if you are like 3 or 4 months ahead, then probably once every couple of weeks will be okay. But then if you get close and the customer has stuff that they need to do on their side as well, then probably make them part of a standard for that project, right? Where you are resolving dependencies and they can visualize, and they are probably being able to use the board with you or share, right? Somehow. That's the best, because you're making them part of the problem and the solution, right? Probably they don't need to be on a daily stand-up, and maybe 2 or 3 times a week, you have a bit of like a coordination in terms of dependencies with them to make sure that all is on track, right? And if something gets blocked, you don't need to wait for a PowerPoint, but you are talking to them and you're resolving dependencies, right? That's, yes, you can have a PowerPoint to update them, but they are part of the flow, right? So that will be my advice, right?
Wim, what about from your perspective? I mean, in leveraging top left to communicate to project stakeholders, what's sort of your go-to?
2 ways. Again, one of our largest clients is using this specifically to communicate with clients around projects. And so one was with the client portal is where they can log in. So I'm just going to log in as a customer here and look at their tickets. So the client can actually log in and see a Kanban with their project and see exactly where it's at. The same information, full transparency. So they can see what's coming up, what's scheduled, what's overdue, over budget. So no surprises. And they can load up a Gantt chart as well. So here's a project on this. Actually, I don't know how well good the dates are on. So let's see what happens here. I'm going live. I bring up the Gantt chart. Okay. So you can see the Gantt chart in that project. In this case, all the tickets are on the same day. But here's another one. The client, for this office move project, the client can have access to the same visual that your project manager has. So you don't need to wait for a meeting. The manager doesn't need to write up an email and put stuff into Excel and reformat it, or retype it into Monday.com or Trello, just to get that visual to them.
But that's a good thing, depending on the level, right? So if you're at the C level, probably they want to see something like this. If you are on let's say there is a project manager on the other side, because they need to do stuff, they probably want to go deeper and see the tickets, right?
Right.
Can they use it as well?
And the fact that you can collapse all this, I mean, it's makes a ton of sense to me. Any key points and takeaways that we have a few, 12-ish minutes left. If there are any questions, great. Any key takeaways that, Wim, you want to highlight, or anything else that we haven't talked about already?
I think it's key is to get the benefits like Steve got, it's getting your whole team in here. It's not just a tool for the project manager. It's not just a visual for them. It's impacting that team and the culture so they collaborate together to get these work or these projects done and these tickets done. If they keep doing
That's the
things the
biggest
old
difference.
way, you keep getting the old performance. And it
Sure.
really
I
is a
mean,
game changer, right? Like we
Yeah.
talked about clients that adopting these agile methods and this way of working, they've doubled their revenue without hiring, right? In like 12, 18 months. We got the story from Steve. I met with another client who's actually presented a webinar as well, Scott Taylor. Implementing these methods, you didn't have to replace people that left. It went from a 9% net profit to like 22% and increased revenue. All right, so it's simpler, all of that. Like this stuff works, but you have to go through the change management, get people into it, show how it impacts their flow. If they're like, it's just another tool, I'm going to go back to my ConnectWise and
Yeah.
work my tickets. But if you hear people talk about then they're not getting it. You got to talk about what's the throughput as a company. What is the throughput? What are we putting out here? What are we getting done for clients as a company? And not just
And
how
then,
you
yeah, go ahead, Melvin.
how you go faster. And you want to go faster, you want to deliver more
Yeah.
with the same people or less. The only
Yeah.
way to go faster is to control flow, but you don't control flow using a tool, a tool like this, a Kanban tool, with the old ways. Like, oh, I have a Microsoft project, which as a project manager, I can only see it. People are doing some tickets, some there, and nobody knows what the priority is. My experience usually is
Yeah.
that when team managers or project managers and they get the teams to use these tools and they start seeing what people are doing, the first shock is like, why they're working on that? Who told them to do that? They're working on the wrong priority. So the tool will start showing you so many things, and then you need to address it, and then you have everybody aligned in sync, and now they're flowing and they're going and doing what they need to do, right? It
Yeah.
takes a little of time, right? But that's what you want, because if not, you don't get any benefit. You can have a Kanban board and what, nothing is going to change, right?
Yeah. And I think, my question is always, how can I get help to make this change, right? Let's say I've felt the pain, I know the pain, we're not doing well on our project execution. It continues to be a problem for all the things that we've already highlighted. And then what would you recommend, Wim, for people to actually initiate this change of, hey, I was doing project management this way, and now I want to go into this agile mode of, leveraging everything that I've seen today, daily stand-ups, whatever, right? Yeah. So there you go. At least that's
yeah,
on the screen. Hopefully everybody can see that.
yeah. And this is goes back to how and why I got into top left to begin with. It's like wasn't just out of the blue. It's a problem I had in my own MSP. We needed the methods. Like we were starting projects and not finishing it and losing clients because we didn't finish it. And it's impacting, it was really bad. So I got back into the methods and realized to implement the methods and needed the tool, but ultimately it was really about the methods and getting the team working on that. And we've seen that clients, they just adopt it as a tool and they don't get very far. And so we developed some offerings to help with that. And there's rapid implementation. And so that's something we started this year and that's going well. And she'll go into an MSP, look at their environment, look at the processes, talk to their team, interview them, see how they're working now, and look at their, let's say, their ConnectWise, their Autotask boards, their statuses, maybe suggest some changes there, but then get the Kanban board set up properly, train their team on it. Like, how does it work? Like, we walked through some of that. Like, how do you pull the cards through one at a time and work on them? Train them on that, and then get the daily huddle going. Like, that's key. Is daily huddle, going through the in progress column, these waiting columns, and reducing what's in there. Let's get these things done before we grab something new. And just being stuck doesn't mean you get to start something new. Like, you got to ask for help first. The guiding into those conversations. So that's a game changer. We do the accelerated group coaching as well. So getting on with other managers, other champions, and to talk through these scenarios and hold each other accountable. So we're doing that. And then working with Melvin, we're also launching something. The dates will be kind of locked in for probably hoping for late April. We got to finalize those dates yet, but doing the safe Scrum Master certification.
Nice.
That's the industry recognized thing. It's not something we've created. It's something Melvin's delivered many times, and so real certification. And so yeah, recommending getting a manager through that. Maybe Melvin, you can speak a bit about the benefits of the Scrum Master.
Yeah, exactly. So Scrum Master is a role. For some companies, it's a job description, but it does help people playing that role to understand how to build a team, how to use all these concepts of Kanban, flow. You need to learn as well to deal with people behavior because, oh, I only like to use ConnectWise. So there is a bit of dealing with behavior as well. And it does help to get people to another level, right? Because once you understand the concepts, then you start improving your team and then things start flowing, right? So it takes, my experience, depending on the people and how long they have been doing the same type of work, it takes something from 3 to 6 months to change that mindset so that people don't go back to the old ways of working. So
Yeah.
by having these Scrum Master skills, you will be in a different place, right? So I work with a lot of project managers and they benefit a lot on Scrum Master, right? Because a lot of project managers played that role. You can still run waterfall. That's not a problem. This is just about you have a team of people that you need to get them to another level, and that the certification will give you.
Yeah. Yeah. Old habits die hard. They really do.
Yes, they do. Yeah, I mean it's a commitment, right? And so I guess Wim, is there what's your number one, what's your best client, so to speak, attribute that you've seen? Somebody that says, I get it, and they get off to the races. What is it that they did that was most stood out the most, was the most influential in them adopting and changing quickly? I think it's hard to, yeah.
It's always a combination, but I think the ones that have dug into the methods. So like I always talk about the Phoenix project, I've got that on my wall, right? Making work visible.
Making more as well.
Always grab my book, but I gave my book away. I had another one on my desk, but that one and
Phoenix project, yeah.
Phoenix project. And then we've got a lot of our own videos. We've got like 100 videos on our YouTube channel. So the go-getter clients are digging into those, watching and rewatching. We've got our academy where we've put some of our trainings that we've charged for in the past. We've put the videos in there, and so you can go through. It's about, I don't know, 6 or 7 hours of content of the methods with the product in an MSP scenario. So it was highly recommended. They're going through that and implementing it.
And the accelerator, what you called it, the accelerator program, is that right? So in that, if I sign up, and is that a month? Is that a month-long program? So in a month I can kind of get through that program with a smaller team, or what's the structure of that?
Accelerator, probably I think a month is probably not enough. Like you could be, if you're doing the work and watching the videos and everything, you could go do some rapid change, and you can definitely get wins along the way. But I think to get that full adoption, you're going to need more than a month. Because there's a lot of, like, we're just scratching the surface with what like Melvin shared today.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
This full Scrum Master training is like 15 hours.
Yeah.
Right. But actually implementing it, you got to spend the time with your teams. Not that it's additional time on the calendar, but through the existing meetings you have with them, your one-on-one, your weekly meetings, your daily meetings, you're impacting them. And that takes a bit of time to shift them.
Sure.
All right.
And it takes you your time to change the way you run it, because you're used to run things in one way and now you need to get out of the comfort zone. And that's a challenge in itself. You're going to feel weird about it. You're not going to feel comfortable. Am I doing the right thing or not? And that's when you need to share with other people experiences. And it takes a little time to change that mindset, right?
Yeah.
Well, good stuff. Right at it. We'll make sure we get out of here on time. If there are any, I don't see any questions, so if I missed them, please chime in. But otherwise, this will be recorded, or is recorded, and it'll be available at some point. So, yeah, I enjoyed the conversation, and definitely something to think about as far as, you know, the flow and keeping it simple, and really focusing in on, you know, that one column of what I've got in progress, you know, making sure that that's optimized for my team and my, you know, not just within the team, but across the organization, that we're not starting too many things at one time. Any other final comments, Wim, you want to make?
No, just, yeah, if you want to explore the coaching or training, just book a call, which will go with Mohammed. So topleft.team/book-CSM, or just email sales and we'll answer those questions. But still, the analogy I love is the picture of the highway and cars going on there. And what the good cities are doing is they got that blinking, like, or that red green light to get on the highway.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Because they've seen that's the best way to avoid congestion on the highway itself, is control the on-ramps.
And unfortunately, those exit ramps, those red light, green lights aren't optimized, so they're just set. So at some point they become ineffective, which is not the case when you have a project manager, because they can let things in, so to speak. They can be the gatekeeper, right?
Yeah.
So.
But it's a learning exercise as well to control it, right? So because
Yep.
you need to learn to say no, you need to learn to deal with customers.
Yeah,
yeah.
Expectation management, right?
Yeah.
All about expectations. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good stuff.
Yeah, we could get into a lot of topics, but we'll leave it there. I think we've covered our thing about, the deadlines. I think we've covered a premise here of there's a lot of focus on deadlines, and it's just ends up with a lot of anxiety and waste. The deadlines are made up out of thin air. People just suck it out of the thumb. Like, we want it done by this date, and now that becomes a deadline, and cause a lot of extra work and stress that's not required. So just design for flow, and you get more done. Yeah.
Good stuff.
All right. Well, thank you, Bjorn, for facilitating. Excellent job as usual. Thank you, Melvin, for your wisdom. And
Absolutely, my pleasure.
great. So thank you, everyone, for being here. I know many people signed up for the recording specifically. I saw that in the registration, so they'll be getting that as well.